Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We've talked on this platform a number of times of the folly of participating in flawed elections. In this case, elections that are so flawed, so illegal, the only logical step is to withdraw. And yet, we've seen people participate in those flawed elections again and again. One has got to ask, how many people out there even comprehend what it really means to say that elections are flawed and illegal and we should not participate? I think this is a very logical question that must be asked, and we must find an answer to. Because as long as we continue to ignore that point, we are going nowhere. Zimbabwe is going to hold the elections in 2028. And probably the most important thing to do is to make sure that people do not participate in the flawed process and give ZANU-PF legitimacy. But if people have failed to comprehend that in the past, the question is, what hope is there of convincing them of that fact come 2028? Benjamin.
Good day to you and good day to our viewers. Thank you for joining us. I think people do know that the elections in Zimbabwe are rigged. There's no doubt in my mind, people do know that. The problem is, like you said, stopping them from participating, regardless of them knowing. That is proving to be the biggest challenge. you know you find people will give excuses to say, if I don't participate, you know ZANU PF will go on and participate alone. If I don't participate, you know the other person is going to participate. you know that kind of argument. And it becomes very difficult when somebody takes a position to say, I'm just going to participate because the next guy is participating. And in the end, we are back to where we are right now. We warned about the 2023 elections, that they were being rigged. Lo and behold, they were rigged. That was not a shocker. And we are here. And if we continue with the same path, 2028 is going to be the same story, like you said. People will participate. The very next day, people will cry and say, elections were rigged. But he knew they were going to be rigged. We said it was going to be rigged, right? It becomes a vicious cycle, vicious circle. We're repeating the same thing over and over again. For me, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
I think what should be explained here is that some people do not understand there's a difference between ZANU-PF participating. ZANU-PF, of course, will want to participate in the elections, which they are going to rig, because they are guaranteed of power. So ZANU-PF invariably will have got a lot to gain from it, so they would want to hold the elections to go ahead. The opposition leaders have a lot to gain. In this quotation which I was showing you here at the bottom of the screen. David Coulthard explains, or rather confesses, why he and his fellow opposition members realized in 2013, that the election process is flawed. It was so flawed, so illegal, the logical step to do was to withdraw. However, he could not withdraw because he and his MDCN colleagues fear that if they withdraw, Morgan Tsvangirai and his MDCT guys would participate and win all the seats that they knew ZANU-PF was offering to entice them to participate. In other words, both MDCN and MDCT participated in those elections out of greed. In fact, it is the same greed that stopped them implementing even one token reform during the GNU of 2008 to 2018. What the people are failing to understand is that while ZANU-PF have got something to gain, the opposition leaders have got something to gain, they themselves have absolutely nothing to gain from it. All they're giving is ZANU-PF and the few opposition members who win the seats, the gravy train seats. And the whole dictatorship is perpetuated. People are not gaining anything from a failed state of Zimbabwe as a failed state. That is the one thing the people are failing to understand. Let's just listen to this video clip of Margaret Longo speaking to that same issue of opposition leaders who now see politics as a career and damn the consequences of their selfishness to the ordinary people.
It's now it is developed even in the grassroots. It's even more ways in the grassroots because these are the grassroots people who see their leaders being corrupt. So they are thinking that it's a type of life that should exist. And then the corruption is shrunk right to the grassroots. There's now corruption everywhere. Worse off with the leadership. Because they have a look. You asked me a very good question. You were in the Central Committee. You were a member of Parliament. You were this and that. Why are you feeling the pinch? It's because, I didn't believe in corruption. I'm not a selfish person. I'm a selfless person. And I'm like a social worker. Politics is not a business. This is what I want to remind most of our MPs and other people.
Do you think they look at it as a business?
Yes, they look at it as a business. Because they look at it as a business seriously. Because the moment they go, business and employment creation. Because if they go to parliament, you are employed. You get a car, you get a stable salary, and you are paid until your term is over. Already you are employed. If you're out of employment.
If you serve 2 terms, you get a pension?
The fastest growing scam of 2025 is spreading like wildfire and wiping out bank accounts.
Sorry about that.
You get a pension. Then already, this is why people kill in politics. They kill to be in parliament. This is why we have violence in this country. Because there is no employment. The only employment which is there is in politics. There is no other outside employment. So for them, a very good example is, look at what happened to CCC, the Triple C party. Have a look. When they lost, when they said they were rigged, what I expected from them, I expected all parliamentarians to say, we are not going to go to participate in a rigged system, and we are not going to sit in a rigged parliament, because the elections have been rigged. So all of us were not going to parliament. Imagine what could have happened. We could have gone into new elections. There's no way ZANU-PF was going to rule alone.
You think so?
Yes.
Do they care?
Caring or not caring, the public would have forced them, because the majority of the people would want representation in parliament.
But they went anyway.
But they went. They realized that, you heard them complain, I used my own money to be in parliament. But what about me who have voted for you? I used my own money. So the idea is to recover. Is it a business where you want to recover your losses? Is it a business? Politics, is it a business where everyone else, when you get in parliament, you want to recover your losses? A good example is now, parliamentarians have been elected.
This is the tragic reality. I think it's a failure by the electorate themselves to realize that both ZANU-PF and the opposition are looking at holding public office as a career, as an employment opportunity for the individual. Holding public office, the people are supposed to elect people who will serve them, the people. And why the ordinary people have failed to realize this is at the heart of our problem. As long as the politicians know they're going to be rewarded for being elected into public office, they will continue to do that, even at the expense of the country being a failed state. We cannot solve the problem of Zimbabwe being a failed state by failing to elect public leaders who addresses those problems and not look at it as a career, as Margaret Long was trying to explain here. In fact, she could have gone back to the GNU. The MDC leaders failed to implement even one token reform during the GNU because Mugabe bribed them. They were happy with what Mugabe offered them, and they forgot about the reforms. The people elected the MDC leaders to implement the reforms, but once in positions of power, they forgot about the reforms. And it is the people's failure to appreciate that fundamental failure that is the root cause of our problem. As long as we have got an electorate who do not know what is it exactly we expect our leaders to do, they will be shortchanged. Ben.
And I agree with you, and I agree with Margaret Longo there. I think she put it very clear that you're finding that you have an opposition that is playing both sides of the fences. They're doing it for themselves, really, and to keep the situation as is. They are benefiting from the situation as is. But I would want to deal with, to dwell on the positive. The emphasis I'm saying that the 2028 election, that is where the future of Zimbabwe hinges. We have people that are talking about the National Transition Authority, different movements, the GESA, and that is the best platform to start those things. Once ZANU PF's mandate in office is up and we refuse to participate in rigged elections, citing that nothing has been done about the irregularities brought up by all observer missions. And those reports were not just shoved away. Those reports are very much alive, and those reports were adopted. The position still remains. Zimbabwe is incapable of holding free, fair, and credible elections as long as nothing has been fixed. And we know nothing has been fixed. So it's not just going to be, deja vu on the day of election, everything is going to run smoothly. ZANU PF will rig those elections. So my point here is, without any reforms or without those recommendations implemented, there should be no elections. We, each and every one of us, should make sure that we do not participate and we make ourselves known that we were refused participation because they did not want to give us free, fair, and credible elections. That position, I think, is very, very strong for us to push any of the other agendas that we want. Do we want to have a GNU? Do we want to have an NTA? Do we, that position, 2028 lies, it's a make or break for us. It is now decision, not, decision time, not for ZANU, but for each and every one of us. Let us decide what are we going to do and plan for it. I think that is the best, best step forward for Zimbabwe right now.
Well, the problem of failure to appreciate that what we have got right now is a dysfunctional government which we have given legitimacy. I don't think that message is filtering through. Here is a video clip of one of the opposition leaders who won in the last parliamentary elections. The MP, Triple C MP for Masvingo Urban, speaking.
ndosaka ndichafamba nawo ndosaka ndichauya muno ndovatisvitsa kuti tizoona kuti ai ndobva ndarama paida ndarama pange dongo kava matongo varipo vanofamba vachitaura kowirirana tiona kuti toendei zvinoda kuzogara pasi nedevelopment committee yamanhu vachisumudzwa nobva vaona zvakanaka pane zvishoma zvatakanga tawana izvi kutanzi aiwa vatiita kuti vana vawane pekugara vachinyora basa ravo rechikoro vachierenga vari pasi ndokubva tati todini ukanzi home iri panapa inokwana kuti pave nemacheya angaita 40 nematebhuru 40 ndokubva.
What the Honorable Martin Mureri, the Masvingo Urban Member of Parliament, is talking about here is he's speaking at a school where, as part of his development package from Parliament, he has managed to buy 40 chairs and 40 tables. And the publicity he's getting, thanks to medias like our friend here, Change Radio, is that the opposition is working. The opposition is performing for the people. This is the kind of message that will only incentivize the people to keep participating in these flawed elections. We cannot have it both ways. If we believe that ZANU-PF can rig elections, give a few seats to the opposition to entice them to keep on participating, and we are foolish enough to believe that the process is okay, then we've got only ourselves to blame. Because we are not going to break this cycle of rigged elections and bad governance. The 40 chairs and 40 tables are not going to compensate for the fact, for the reality that Zimbabwe is a failed state. We need to look at the bigger picture. ZANU-PF will always see to it that the opposition participate. Indeed, in 2018, Mnangagwa created the supernumeral Pollard, a body which was meant to reward all the losing parliamentary candidates in the 2018 elections who were willing to come up and endorse that the process was free, fair, and credible, and Mnangagwa is the legal candidate, the winning candidate. ZANU-PF knows that it needs to keep up this pretense that Zimbabwe is a healthy and functioning democracy for its own legitimacy. And we, the people, have got to be aware of the fact that there are, as Margaret Dongo tried to explain here, there are opposition leaders who will participate in flawed elections no matter how flawed the process gets. And in this case here, we need to be also aware of the fact that we have certain media houses who will continue to promote this illusion that we have got a healthy and functioning political system, that we can continue participating in flawed elections. Indeed, Nelson Chamisa is on record saying Triple C was going to win big in 2023 because I've plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. The truth of the matter is, he had not plugged any loopholes at all. He was just conning people to participate in flawed elections. Ben, do you want to give your closing remarks?
In closing, I would want to say, I think you mentioned a very, very good statement when you said ZANU-PF needs us to participate, to legitimize the process, to give the process credibility. And, in Shona, they say, Yatsika Msheshe Yama. So whether the process is rigged or not, you have to accept the outcome because you participated in it. Again, I will say 2028 lies our solution, make or break of Zimbabwe. The choice is us. We can continue doing what we normally do every election time, which is participate in rigged elections, cry the following day, and accept that ZANU-PF will take us for another, term, that is our choice. Or we stop this madness and put our foot down. And I am sure that once we deny, or once they they deny 2 million plus people a right to a meaningful say in the leadership of their country or what goes on in their country, there is no one that is going to give ZANU-PF that stamp of legitimacy. And this will force us, force them into, either a GNU or accepting that there is need for a transitional government until the problem of rigged elections are solved. And that is the position that we need to create for ourselves. No one is going to create for it. It is me and you that has to create that. And it starts by saying no reforms, no elections, period.
I think it is important to underline here that the decision not to participate in the flawed election can only be expected from the people themselves. As I explained before, ZANU-PF leaders have everything to gain from rigged elections. They are staying in power and they are able to loot, and they have been looting. The opposition leaders, they too have something to gain from participating. And Mnangagwa knows that. And ever since the GNU, ZANU-PF has been very careful to make sure that they do not have a clean sweep of the public office gravy train sits. They always leave something for the opposition to aim for. And the opposition leaders have been participating in these flawed elections out of greed, knowing fully well that by participating, they only give ZANU-PF legitimacy. So change will only come from the people themselves finally realizing that the MDC, Triple C leaders are ZANU-PF Team B in all but name. Playing for Team A to win, for Team A to have legitimacy. This whole nonsense of the opposition winning rigged elections, the people have been told this idiotic lie so many times. It is unbelievable that there are some people out there who still believe it. And yet, if the truth be said, there are still millions who believe that. The biggest challenge is to open those people's eyes, to make them realize there is really nothing to be gained from participating in flawed elections, knowing fully well that ZANU-PF is rigging and that participating will only give ZANU-PF legitimacy. My closing remark is the people of Zimbabwe have got to wake up to the reality that universal suffrage has become a curse for Zimbabwe. We have given the vote to people who do not even appreciate the subtle differences between a free, fair, and credible election about the folly of participating in flawed elections to perpetuate the dictatorship. And yet these are the important details. These people are easily conned into believing that we do not need free, fair, and credible elections because we can win rigged elections. Even after 45 years of ZANU-PF rigging elections and staying in power, there are millions of people out there who still believe it because they're locked in this Chamisa Chete Chete mentality where they believe Chamisa is right and they will not listen to reason. Chamisa told them that he was going to win 2023 elections. Hashtag God is in it. And they believed him. But a day after voting was done, even Chamisa himself was admitting that the elections were rigged. And yet the followers, even today, some of them cannot accept that Chamisa lied to them. Educating that Chamisa Chete Chete Brigade remains the biggest challenge if we are ever going to change Zimbabwe meaningfully. Think about it. Thank you very much, those who were able to join us, and hope we'll be able to do it again in future. Same time, 7 o'clock UK time, 8 o'clock Zimbabwean time. Good day.